Hi everyone, Jason here from C Squared Racing, and today I'm going to show you what it's like to drive an iRacing with a VR setup. This is my Oculus Rift headset. It's a little bit older headset than the latest stuff that's out now, but that's what I use on my simulator rig. And today I'm going to show you some footage that I recorded from a practice session that I did with my friend Kristian Aleixo, who you may remember from our earlier video on iRacing spotting. Kristian was getting ready to participate in a race in the Velocity Online racing series, IndyCar series, which is a professional series that runs mostly road courses using the IR18 spec IndyCar. And we were practicing for an upcoming event at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, which is a track that Kristian and I are both quite familiar with. So Kristian and I hopped in our cars and did a few laps around the brickyard, and both of us were wearing our VR headsets when we did it. So hopefully you find this video helpful if you're thinking about maybe upgrading your system to virtual reality, or if you've ever wondered what it's like to race in VR. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the video. So I'm racing with my friend Kristian here. We're just doing some practice laps. He is behind me. Can't quite see him in my mirror just yet. I'm catching up. You maybe see him right there. And we're just doing some one-on-one practice, getting ready for a race this weekend. We'll see if we can get some good side-by-side racing footage here.
Oh no.
Apparently not. I do believe he's wrecked on his warm-up lap.
Reset.
Reset. So what we're trying to do here in this practice session is just get used to driving in the draft, get used to making passes, and getting some practice with some side-by-side stuff. Much closer to it this time. You can see him there in my mirror. And it is nice when you're in VR like this to be able to look over and really use that peripheral vision. You can see right there, really being able to turn my head and see that someone's there and not have to rely on hitting a keyboard command. So yeah, when you're in this car in 3D, you have just this really fantastic perspective. You can really look all the way around. You can even look you can clip through and actually kind of look outside the car if you want to cheat a little bit. Obviously the headset's going to allow, he's going to put your viewpoint wherever you put it, even if it's clipping through a structure. But if you keep your head basically still, it's where you normally would be. But you have that ability to look side to side, probably definitely a lot more range of motion than an actual driver would have in a car like this. But the interior here is so fully detailed, it's really neat. I mean, I could even slouch down and you can look and see the feet and the pedals, and you can see all the stuff back there, and that's pretty cool. One thing I don't like is my black boxes are down here in the corners, and that means I have to move my head quite a bit to see that information. So sometimes you get distracted when you're trying to read things like that. But if you're just trying to focus out the windshield, it's not too bad. I think Kristian wants to get going. But really being able to look into turns, to be able to see your mirrors, all that stuff is so useful. Something that's very difficult to do, especially if you don't have the room for a big triple monitor set, which I don't have room for. So this is a really nice way to get that same peripheral vision. And you also get that 3D effect. That sense that things really are where they are in 3D space that you will never get with a 3D monitor. And here I think Kristian's going inside.
Inside. Stay high.
He's trying to. We'll see. We'll get some side by side here.
Stay
maybe
right
in turn
there.
one. Where is he? I think he's
Clear.
there. Gapped him a little bit. right behind me now. I'm probably going to dive into the corner. Not quite yet. Definitely thinking about it though. He's right on my gearbox now. He's going for it now.
1, 2, inside.
There he is. See, I can turn my head and really see where he is.
Keep high.
Get real close to me there. I had to get out of it a little bit.
Clear to the bottom.
We almost made contact. Alright, now I'm chasing him. I'm going to see if I can catch back up. That draft really pulls you around.
Got one inside. Keep high. Clear inside.
Just a little bit. I'm trying downshift. Stayed with him through the corner.
Outside.
See if we can go on the inside of him here.
Still there.
Try to pinch me a little bit.
41.882. Clear outside.
Alright, made the pass back in front. Back and forth. Trying to stay in my draft. Spotter's not telling me he's there, but I feel like he is.
Keep high. Clear to the
And
bottom.
road. Little wall scrape there, I'm okay. Almost did it again now.
41.892. Got one inside. Stay high.
There it is.
Stay high. Clear to the bottom.
I'm gonna watch that wake as he comes in front of me. Keep him
Got
on
one
the
inside.
Look at that.
Still
Side
there.
by side down the backstretch. Drag race.
Stay high.
Now if I can pinch him down a little bit, he
Keep high.
can't stay on the throttle, and I can.
Keep it on top.
Hanging with me. Good job, Kristian.
42.059. Keep it on top.
Yeah, a little too close. You were in my blind
You're
spot.
dropping a lot of fluid. We have to fix it.
What's that?
I said you were in my blind spot.
That's okay.
So when I'm in VR, there is a bit of a frame rate hit. I can get an easy 80 frames per second when I'm just sending the video to a monitor. But when I send it to this Oculus headset, it does fall more into the 40 to 50 range, which is still just fine. I mean, as you can see on your screen, this isn't too bad. You know, most movies are filmed at 24 frames per second. At least that used to be the number. I don't know if it still is. You know, so the human eye, for a lot of people, they can't even tell the difference, you know, anything above 30. So for me, if I'm above 40 frames per second, I don't complain. There are definitely things that you can turn off. We'll go through the settings a little bit to show you what I've got turned on and off and to what level. I don't have the best video card in the world, but it's not terrible.
41.
And it does a pretty good job. I can keep the crowd on, I can keep a lot of the textures up high, things like that, a lot of the ambient details that help improve immersion. And that's really what VR is all about. It's all about really feeling like you're sitting in the car, like you're really driving around this track. And I spend a lot of time at this track. I know the little details that exist here, and I know what's missing and what's incorrect and what's out of date and things like that. So I know what this place looks like, and so to be in a situation where I can feel immersed in a place that I'm familiar with in real life and feel like I'm really there, that's a really big asset to a driver.
41.654 inside.
Christian's on the
Stay
inside
right there.
again. I like being on the outside here.
Stay high.
I feel like I can do a little bit more when I'm on the outside. When I'm
Keep
on the inside.
high.
I think it's harder to hold it down on the line than something
Clear
else.
inside. Inside. Still there. Clear.
So I just scraped the wall a second ago, and one thing that's also nice about VR is you can actually, lean around and see things. And you probably couldn't do that in the real car. I'm certain you can't do that in the real car. You could loosen the belts and you'd be strapped in pretty tight. You'd be pretty much stuck on this viewpoint right here. But I'm at home and I'm not strapped in. And if I'm worried that I got wing damage, when it's safe to do so, like on this big straightaway coming up here, I can lean forward and I can actually look to see what my wings look like. They look okay. That's that's an advantage that you have in VR on iRacing that you wouldn't have in the real car. So I'm going to bring it in for a pit stop here, and this is another thing. You get depth perception with VR, and I don't know if this is going to be a good pit stop. Oh, no. I broke way too early there, and I forgot to downshift. Never mind. I'm trying to commentate, and I got to remember that I don't need to push the radio button when I'm commentating, because you don't need to hear me talking.
I see.
I think I just did it that one time, but if I've said weird things before, that's probably why.
That's it, go!
So, in VR like this, one of the things that is really a big benefit that you don't get, no matter how many monitors you have, it's sort of displayed it right there, depth perception.
Whoa, you okay?
Yeah, I kept it off the wall, just barely. Yeah, I was definitely catching it. So I could tell based on depth perception that I was catching it. You could just tell things that are farther away. Not just because this car looks bigger on the screen, but you do get a sense of depth. You get a sense of distance when you're coming into pit road, and you have to slow down. It's easier because it feels like you can see it coming. Sometimes it's actually harder to drive on a simulator than it is to drive a real race car because you don't have that depth perception. And racing in VR brings some of that back. It's not quite the same, but it definitely brings some of it back to you. And you can judge distances a lot better. It looks like Kristian.
Go high.
So I think we're going to reset again.
I just almost died, and the fans have no reaction. They're just staring.
Yeah, it's sad when the fans don't care. So real quick, while I change my tires, I want to show you guys something.
That's it, go!
Just one second. I want to show you guys something real quick that's
Okay.
kind of bizarre about being in VR. It doesn't, because you're not actually fixed in the car, you can move your head around a lot more than a real driver could, as I mentioned before, being able to lean and things like that. So one of the things that, if you want to sort of freak yourself out a little bit, as you can see when I look down, my body is modeled here. I have legs and arms, and you can see the seat belt and all that. It's pretty detailed, and this actually kind of looks like my fursuit a little bit, so this looks very realistic. This is what it would look like if I was sitting in an IndyCar. But I can also get up out of the chair in my rig, but my model isn't going to move, and this made me chuckle a little bit. But if I climb up a little bit, it's hard to get out of this rig, so bear with me here. But you can actually get up and look back at yourself, and you have no head. I don't know why, that makes me laugh. Say hello to my pit crew. He has to go to the bathroom. Now, for those of you who, like me, like to make a YouTube video every now and then, or like to stream on Twitch, something else I'll mention is that with VR, you get to give viewers a little bit of additional insight into what it's like to be in the car, because they are seeing exactly what you are seeing. They are seeing
41.7
every head movement, every mirror check, every glance down at the steering wheel, all of that stuff. They see exactly what you're looking at. If you're looking through the corner, or you're driving, you know, by your mirror, driving defensively, trying to block somebody, they're going to see that. Just the way you guys are seeing me checking my mirrors here.
Got one inside.
And that's just kind of cool. That makes it a little
Clear.
more enjoyable to watch something like this when you get a chance to really get a feel for what it's like to be in the car, and to see exactly how many things you have to pay attention to and how much
Inside.
you need to move your head.
41.849. Still there. Clear to the bottom.
Now this time I'll try and stay out of his wake so I don't wreck. Until you get to the straightaway. Now I want to be in the wake. He's going to get hard. He's going to snake on me.
Inside. Keep it on top.
So you hear guys talk about immersion when they talk about simulators, and generally what they're talking about is that feeling of realism, because that's what you want out of a simulator. That's the difference between a simulator and something that's just an arcade game. So with an immersive environment, for someone like me who wants to use this for real practice, and I'm not going to race one of these IndyCars in real life, but I might hop into this and run in something that I might drive in real life, like a sports car. I want it to feel as realistic as possible, so that when I get into the real car,
43.147.
everything transfers over. I want it to not feel like I haven't really put those hours in.
You want to reset?
Yeah, well, I'll just bring it in. And having things like fans in the stands, and you know, having the track textures look real,
All right,
the
lock
grass
them
look
up.
real. All of that stuff just makes it feel more realistic and makes it feel more like you're really there. Obviously, you got to have the physics from the simulator to be accurate, the feel of the wheel, the resistance, all that. Oop, I slowed down way more than I needed to. All that has to be real as well, but that just that feeling that it's the same as if you were in the car for real. You know, the skid marks that you see on the track as we go by, all of that stuff, the bumps and things that are in the simulator, all of that stuff adds to the immersive feel. And iRacing can be very immersive if you have a good enough machine to turn all of the graphics on, turn all the ambient noise on, all the things like that. And it just makes it feel, everything just feels so much more realistic. And that makes it more useful in the real world. And if you're not trying to translate to the real world,
Go!
if you're just in here to have fun and just do this to enjoy it, it just adds to that enjoyment, to feel like you're really in that environment. It doesn't feel fake. So you get to imagine what it's like to be in one of these real cars. I'll never get a chance to do a lap around this place at 230 miles an hour in one of these cars in real life, but I get to experience what it would feel like, at least a little bit, at least what it would look like through the eyes of a IndyCar driver, and that's pretty cool too. Now Kristian, the gentleman that I'm practicing with today, he is a real-world driver as well, and he has experience in cars more like this, Formula-style cars. And again, he uses iRacing because he wants to keep sharp for racing in real life. And it was actually him that got me to try VR. He said it's an absolute game changer. When you can put that headset on, it feels so much more real, and you get that sense of depth and that sense of peripheral vision. Everything just becomes so much more genuine and so much more realistic. And he's right. It really does.
1 minute 52.701.
As I said before, just being able to look into the corners, being able to check your mirrors. It's hard.
Inside.
It would be difficult now to
Still
transition
there.
back
Clear
to
to the
not
bottom.
racing in VR because I'm so used to this now.
Inside. Clear to the bottom. Got one outside. Stay low. 41.459. Stay on the bottom. Stay low. Clear to the top.
Damn it. Yeah, man, I saved your butt right there.
Uh-huh.
Something else you can do that I find sometimes interesting when I'm in replay mode is that in any camera angle, you still have this 360-degree ability to look around you. So here I'm using the right rear suspension camera view. Obviously, you wouldn't be using this while you were driving, but if you're watching replays, it's really neat. Now I'm watching this just live as Kristian comes into pit after I got into the wall. But during replays, this is kind of a fun way to watch things because you can turn around and completely see 360 degrees without having to change the view. So it's kind of fun to watch when you have somebody that's battling back and forth and cars are passing each other. You don't have to constantly change the view. You can just turn your head. So that's fun. All right, back into the car. People will get into VR and feel nauseous, whether they're watching 360 stuff or full virtual reality. What your
Clear.
brain is getting in terms of signals from your inner ear is not necessarily matching what it feels or what it's seeing through your eyes. Your eyes are telling your brain that you are moving down this racetrack at 230 miles an hour. And your inner ear is saying, no, I'm not. And that little bit of confusion in your brain
Got
can
one
lead
inside.
to a
Still there.
sense of nauseousness. And we call that sim sickness. And it feels like being seasick.
Keep it on
or
top.
airsick. If you have a
Clear
full
the
motion
bottom.
simulator where you actually have a hydraulic setup that moves the rig up and down and left and right and tries to recreate those movements, those G-forces, then that will help alleviate that. But a lot of people who have VR don't have the money to invest into the higher end, fully hydraulic, 6-degree of freedom motion rigs. And so it's always good when you're first starting out and you're not used to that disorientation to make sure that you give yourself a break after a while if you start to feel a little nauseous. But you can get used to it, and eventually it does go away as you sort of acclimatize to being in a virtual reality space. For anyone who's watching, you notice as I check my mirrors that sometimes I do have to kind of move my head down a little bit. I will admit that I have my head raised a touch higher than I think it would be in the real car. And that does compromise my view out the back because I'm looking a little bit more down at the road than I should.
42.015.
Sorry, that didn't need to go over the radio.
Oh, really?
Crap, I hate when I do that. It's embarrassing. I'm trying to commentate in this video for you guys, and I keep accidentally hitting the radio button, and so I'm transmitting my video commentary to Kristian, who's sitting back there wondering why I'm telling him all these things. But yeah, my head should probably be maybe an inch lower. It's not off by much, but I did raise it up a little bit for different reasons. One, relative to where the steering wheel was, and two, just a little bit easier to see over the dashboard. I've never sat in one of these cars in real life. I don't know exactly what the visibility should be, but I do know when I look at the mirror, which I can't adjust, I have to drop my head just a little bit to really see behind me. And I'm assuming that that's probably not right, so I probably should drop my head position just a touch.
42.068.
That's the most interesting thing about driving, is just like keeping your mind in check while you're doing it.
Yeah, like not doing YouTube commentary.
Yeah.
I really wish I could show people what it looks like to wreck horrendously in VR. But it just doesn't translate.
Right.
41.78. Got one inside. Keep high. Keep it on top. Keep it on top. Still there. Clear inside. Got one outside. 42.051. Stay on the bottom. Still there. Clear.
Bad to lift big time.
Yeah, I was counting on that.
When you wreck in VR, it feels so much more real, especially with the new damage model. The damage model on these cars is fantastic. It really does feel a lot more realistic. But in VR, that's not great. Now, it's probably good that the cars don't
I'm going to check up a
flip
little bit.
around and upside down anymore, because that would probably make me throw up in VR. But when you have a hard impact, if you really lose grip, and so you're sliding in the grass, or you're even sliding on the asphalt, and you're going to hit that wall, there's nothing you do about it. Seeing it really come at you in VR, in 3D, and having that sense of something actually coming at you can be a little disturbing and unsettling at times. I just backed over a crew member. Sorry.
A Willie T. Rib in Vancouver.
Yeah, that probably hurt. Yeah, I think he's hurt pretty bad. Yeah, he might be pinned against the wall. He keeps slapping the car like he wants me to move it off. You all right, bud? I don't know. He'll be fine. These guys are tough.
Yeah, they're pros.
Yeah, he's good. He's gone now. Okay, here's another problem that you don't hear a lot about in VR racing, but it's a big deal. My eye itches really badly right now, and I can't scratch it. There are quite a few other driving simulators that will support VR. Most of my experience so far has been with iRacing. I did recently get myself a copy of R-Factor 2, and I know that that will support it. However, I have not tried it yet. I believe I heard that Project Cars will accept VR. I do not personally use Project Cars. It may be something I try in the future. I've heard that...
What are you running, like a 41.5 right now?
41.7 last out. I've heard Project Cars supports VR, but I do not have a copy of that. I have heard that Project Cars is excellent in terms of immersion. so that may be something that people want to try out. Another extremely immersive driving simulator.
Checker flag. Practice is over.
About competition is a Euro Truck Simulator. I've actually been having a lot of fun driving a semi-truck around Europe. That can be a very immersive, realistic feeling simulator if you want something that's maybe a bit more casual and slower paced. It's challenging in its own way. But if you're looking for racing simulators, you've got a few options besides iRacing. So if iRacing's not your favorite, don't worry, you've got some options. Does your crew chief still give you time?
Oh no! No. Once this is over, it's it.
Oh, there you go. There's a wreck in virtual reality. I wish you guys could experience how unsettling it is to have a wall coming at you that fast. I'm sure it doesn't come through in the video you're watching, but it feels a lot like it does in real life. And that's not awesome. But I think that's going to be it for the on-track portion of the video. And I'm transmitting my commentary again, aren't I, Kristian?
Yes, you are.
Well, that wasn't cool.
I didn't want you to be out here by yourself.
Yeah, I think that's the end. Alright, so our session is over, and I want to take you guys through some of the settings that I mentioned before. So, as you can see here, this is the interface that you would normally see on your screen, that would normally take up the full screen. I have this set to a 50% zoom ratio, so it's about half the size that it would normally be. So if this was full size, the way the simulator would normally have it, I would have to look all around to see my menus, and I don't want to do that. It doesn't. I don't want it to feel like it's on some huge, giant, building size IMAX kind of screen. So you can set that by changing the zoom options, and that means when you click on a menu like this, it looks a relatively normal size. It's not the size of a like I said, an IMAX screen. So for the VR stuff, you go into options. I'm sorry, graphics, and it's the same screen. There's no different here, but there's some things that you might set a little differently, or things you might have to worry about or not worry about based on whether you're using VR or standard monitor. And here is the UI zoom that you see I set to 50%. You've got different options. So if you set it to 100, it's huge. So I set it to 50, so that it's a little more reasonable. And that may not look as big a deal on your screen, but in VR, that looked enormous. You can set it really huge if you want it to look like a giant, huge movie screen. Actually, it doesn't look any... I think maybe it caps it. That didn't look like there was a difference between 200 and 150, but I like it at 50. To me, that looks more like what I would see if I was looking at it on a monitor. Resolution, you can set that based on what your headset can do. GPU support, some people are cooler than me, and they have apparently up to 4 GPUs or video cards that they run this stuff off of. I'm a poor boy, I got one, and so I only pick one. But if you're cooler than me and you have more than one GPU in your gaming computer, it'll let you take advantage of that. Number of screens, again, for VR, you're going to want to have that at 1. This would be 3 if you were doing a triple monitor set, but for VR, you can just select 1. Check SPS. Full screen and border aren't really going to matter too much because it's basically going to be full screen if it's in VR. I only have full screen unchecked because when I'm in 2D, I use overlays, and the overlays I use require you to be out of full screen. But in VR, that becomes irrelevant. I don't make any adjustments to any of these settings, and the monitor bezel settings and viewing distance, all of that becomes irrelevant in VR. You don't have to worry about any of that. The VR headset takes care of it. Now you get down into the performance settings, and here's the thing that is going to make a difference, because in VR it is going to be more, uh, it's going to use more of your resources, because it's got to produce something in a, you know, all aspect panoramic type view. So settings that maybe get away with in 2D maybe start to hit your frame rate a little bit more in VR. I can actually do about double the frame rate in 2D as I can do in VR. I have it's a gaming video card, but it's not one of the real high-end, you know, the new 3060s that NVIDIA has out. It's not a super high-end one. If you have one of those, you can probably crank all of this stuff up as high as it'll go. I've got more of a lower-end gaming card, but it is still decent enough that I can keep most of these turned up. Sky and clouds, a lot of people will turn that down because you're not looking at them too often. Cars, you want that turned up high because that's the thing you're looking at. That's what you're racing against. Pit objects, this is important for immersion. I think it's easier to find my pit stall if I have more pit objects as well, so I like to keep that up high. Event, I'm not entirely sure what that is, if that's just track logos, billboards, things like that. I'm not entirely sure what that is. I turn it up high, it doesn't seem to cause a problem. Grandstands, again, that's more of an immersion thing. You don't have to have grandstands, you really just have to have the track in front of you, but it looks more realistic if you have the grandstands, and if you're using any grandstand features as marks, as braking marks or turn-in marks. Sometimes you might use that. You'll want to have those drawn. Crowds, you know, really when you're driving, sometimes you notice them, sometimes you don't. Some people care, some people don't. That's up to you whether or not you want to have it look like there's actually fans in the stands. Objects, those can be the random objects around the track. I think that's things like the road cones and stuff like that. I keep that up high. I don't think that's a big hit. Some of these things are bigger hits than others. Particles, I like to keep that high. I think that affects things like smoke. If you're sliding the tires, things like that. I like to keep that turned up pretty high as well. I check full res. I don't do the soft checkbox. I don't really care about that. That doesn't seem to make a big difference. The max cars, this is how many cars it will draw in front of you, behind you, in your mirror. And you want to have, the reason 63 is set is for overlays. But you can adjust the pull down list here depending on, you know, what works for you. I usually set it, I don't usually need to see every car on the track. You know, most of the races I run don't even have 30 cars in them, so I set it to 30, and that covers me for everything. Again, the FPS settings here, I set this to world only. FPS I set to 60, cars only. Frame rate limit 80, so it kind of keeps it at 80. You know, I don't, you know, for me, anything above 80 is kind of irrelevant. Honestly, I could set that even lower. It wouldn't really bother me, so the frame rate limits, I pretty much keep them the same way in 3D as I do 2D. Max pre-rendered frames, I didn't really touch that, I just left that as default. The filtering, this can be, I believe, a fairly decent drain. I have that at 8x. And then I think this is anti-aliasing. If I look down at the little thing at the bottom here, yeah, anti-aliasing. One thing that's kind of irritating in VR is that if you want to know what some of these options are, you have to look way down here and then try and read it at an angle, because it looks like it's really far away and angled at a 45-degree angle away from you. So if you don't remember what some of these things are, the help box is still there, but it's way down there, where it's not really terribly useful. Anti-aliasing can definitely be a big drain, and I don't find it makes too big a difference, so you can set that lower or even just all the way off if you want. I get away with 4x. Render dynamic track data and render dynamic tire data, I check both of these. Shadow maps on tracks, these things can be something that if you're having problems with frame rate, you can drop these down a little bit. Whether or not they show, whether objects cast shadows, whether or not you have dynamic shadows, night shadow maps on walls and headlights. If you're driving at night, you may want that. That may be something that impacts your ability to see properly. But in daytime, it may not be as important to you. It may be something that you can turn down a little bit to save some frame rate. Number of lights, I think this is the number of headlights. You can turn that up or down if you don't want to see that. Again, that's more important if you're driving at night. If you never drive at night, you can turn all that off. Dynamic cube maps, fixed cube maps, and shader quality. I leave these pretty much at the default. Shader quality obviously is just going to make everything look better if you have that turned up high. If you have a video card that can handle that, it's just, you know, looks nice. And then some settings over here. Show driver arms. That actually you can actually get a little bit of frame rate back by turning that off. Back when I had a slower computer, I turned that off, and it made a big difference. So if you're having some problems and you don't care if you see your arms on screen, that can be something you turn off. For VR, though, I like to see that because that, again, makes it feel more realistic if I can see my arms. Two pass trees, I turn that off because I don't look at trees when I'm driving around. The trees in iRacing don't look very good anyway, so I just forget that and uncheck that. I don't know if that saves a lot of resource or not. Cockpit mirrors, in VR, you're going to want to use your mirrors, so you're going to want to turn those on. Higher detail in mirrors, again, I like to have that turned on just because I use them in VR. If I'm not in VR, I don't care as much about these, but in VR, I do want those. Headlights, high detail, again, if you're driving at night, that may be important. Headlights on track in mirrors, I check that too, again, if you're driving at night. Virtual mirror field of view, I don't use the virtual mirror because it doesn't seem realistic. I want to feel like I've got, you know, what I would really have in the car, so I use the actual mirrors in the car. I don't use the virtual mirror. But if you want to use that, that can be a bit of a drain on your frame rate as well. Some other extra things that you can add on, that you can check or uncheck depending on what you can do. Heat haze, it's, you know, again, it uses a lot of resources. You don't really need it. Sharpening, I turn that on, but I could live without it. High dynamic range is something that, again, I think you don't miss it if it's not turned on, and that can have a big impact. So that's one I turn off. I'm not even sure what FXAA is. What does it say down here? I don't know. I can't read it. But I turn that off. Distortion, parallax, all these things. I don't think these are all just eye candy kind of things that you don't really need. You can turn those off. I do have the high resolution car textures because that is something that's important. You want to be able to see the cars clearly, and you want them to look realistically. And the hide car numbers, I want to be able to see the car numbers. Honestly, when you're driving around, you can't really see them usually anyway, unless it's like NASCAR or something where the numbers are huge. And then down here, your max GPU video memory. You know, this gives you an indication of how much, based on how you set these settings, how much you're using. And then your max system memory, again, same thing, kind of gives you an idea of what you've set and what your system can handle. So, you know, this will, if you're setting things a little too high, down here, this will kind of give you a clue that maybe you need to pull back on some of that stuff. But this right here is what I use. You can, some of these things may be more important to some people than others. You can turn some of these up, turn some of them down. I'm only using an NVIDIA 1650 video card, and I get away with this pretty well. I run about mid-40s frame rate, and that's fine for me. That looks just fine. I don't notice anything all that different between that and higher frame rates, because my eyes aren't good enough to really detect the difference. So this is fine for me, and I have most of these things turned up pretty high. You know, I think I have crowds down and sky down, you know, but you know, you can get away with quite a bit. If you've got a newer video card, a higher end video card, you definitely can handle these things just fine. iRacing is not one of the more resource intensive pieces of software out there. You can get away with quite a lot if you have a computer that's not too old. I ran this on a 12-year-old computer for a long time before it finally got to the point where it wouldn't run anymore. Not with VR, but just in 2D. You know, it looked fine. I had to turn a lot of this off, but it still ran. So if you got a decent video card and a decent computer, you shouldn't have any problems. And that's really it for here. I'll point you to the controls menu only to say that when you have a headset on, it's difficult to use your keyboard. So what you have mapped to the buttons on your steering wheel is going to be important. So things that you know you're going to have to use during a race, you really want to have them mapped to something that you can get to by feel, because you're not going to want to have to pick your headset up to use your keyboard, especially during a race. So certain important things you're going to want to have mapped to your controls. And one of the things that you wouldn't normally have mapped, but you're going to want to if you're in VR, is this very last thing at the bottom, Recenter HMD. That's your head-mounted display. And you're going to want to have a button on your steering wheel or on your gear shift or whatever your peripheral setup is that you can access this option. What this does is it recenters your display. So when you first get into the car, the headset might not exactly put everything directly in front of you. And so when you get into the seat, you get into a comfortable driving position, you're going to want to hit that button, and that's going to recenter everything right in front of you so that it's where it should be. A lot of times when I start iRacing, everything is off to the side a bit. So I have to sit in the chair, I have to sit back, get my head, and therefore the headset, where it will be when I'm driving, and then I have a button on my steering wheel. I press the button and it just recenters everything, and that's very important. If you're driving 2D with monitors, you probably didn't even know that was there, but that's something you're definitely going to want to have a button on your steering wheel or something else that's within reach that you can hit, not on a keyboard, unless you're really good at feeling your way around a keyboard when you can't see, or if you've got one of those newer VR headsets that allows you to actually see outside with a camera to see what's around you. Some people have that, I don't, so I need to have everything done by touch. So that's really it for the settings. Nothing really else more to show, but VR is great if you can do VR in this type of environment. It really does enhance the experience a lot. It is an absolute game changer. It feels so much more realistic. When you talk to people who drive cars in real life and then also hop on the sim, people who know what it looks like to look out the windshield of a race car. I have driven at this particular track in real life, Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Not on the oval, but I have been down this straightaway right here that we're looking at. I've been down that pit road. I work at this track when I'm not racing here, and I know what this place looks like. And to put myself in a VR environment that really captures that is something that's really special to be able to do. And it's absolutely the most realistic experience you can have. There are simulators out there that may have better graphics, that may have more immersive environments, but you know, realistically, the VR aspect of it, no matter what software you're using it with, will take whatever you have and just make it 10 times better and make it so much more realistic. So I definitely recommend it. You know, even if it means you have to go get a secondhand headset from a used electronics store, it's worth it. If you can afford a new headset, you know, there's different price points that these things are at. I've got an older Oculus Rift. You have the Rift S, you have the HTC Vive, the Quest. I'm not sure if the Quest works with iRacing, being that it's PC software, but definitely, if you have the opportunity to try this out in VR, I highly recommend it. I hope this video has given you a taste of what it's like. I know you don't get to experience the full 3D, you know, aspect of it through watching a YouTube video, but it really is something cool, and it really is something special. And I love VR gaming now. Once I got that headset, I started playing all kinds of VR games, besides just iRacing, and it's a ton of fun. It's a really neat experience once you get into it. you know, you'll have a lot of fun with it, and you won't you'll get your money's worth out of it. I absolutely guarantee you. It's such an amazing experience. So if you get a chance to try it with iRacing, you know, go ahead, give it a shot. Let us know in the comments what you think. If you tried it out, you know, what was your experience like? You know, we'd love to hear about it. If you guys have any questions that we didn't cover in the video, again, go ahead, ask them in the comments. And, you know, we do try and go through if people have questions, and we will try and respond. We also put our social media statistics or social media contacts in the description for the video, so you can also contact us through there. You can contact me through Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, or contact the team through Facebook or Instagram. And we'd be happy to help you with this. So at the end of the video, I will also include the specs for VR and for iRacing. Those have changed. If you watched our previous video about getting started with sim racing, we did include the software requirements for both iRacing and then also the Oculus, and I think we also maybe even had the HTC VR minimum specs, and those are different now than what they were back then. So we're going to put the updated specs. Actually, you know what I'll do is I'll put them in the description. That way you don't have to watch the video. You can just pull up the video and just copy them out of the description. So we'll put those in the description below. So look for that. And I hope that's everything you guys need. I hope you enjoyed the experience. I hope this makes you want to give it a shot yourselves. And I mean, I love it. And maybe we'll get a chance to race against each other in VR one of these days. That'd be pretty cool. So until then, we'll see you guys on the next lap. Have fun.